In the far corner of the Milky Way, news traveled faster than light. An alien ship, silver, sharp, and silent, cut through the clouds of Earth. People gathered in cities, staring at the glowing sky. It wasn't war this time. It was a visit. They said she was a diplomat, a representative of the Vorex Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Her name was Zareen, and her reputation traveled before her, proud, cold, and untouchable. She didn't come with soldiers or weapons. She came with something more dangerous: words. When she stepped onto the stage built for the United Council meeting, cameras from every corner of the planet turned to her. Her skin shimmered like glass, her eyes glowing blue. Her smile carried the quiet confidence of someone who had never been told no. "People of Earth," she began, her voice calm and perfect, echoing through the chamber. "You have come far for such a small species." The crowd fell silent. Some smiled nervously, some frowned. But everyone could feel the insult hidden behind those soft words. Zareen looked around, studying the humans like a scientist studying insects. "You fight, you destroy, you rebuild, again and again," she said. "Your species has passion, yes, but no control. You are chaos trying to pretend it is civilization." A few humans shifted in their seats. One woman whispered, "She's mocking us." And she was right. Zareen continued, "In the Council of Worlds, we reward progress. We admire intelligence. But humanity?" Her voice lowered. "You are still crawling." The words struck hard. Every camera caught the moment, her eyes bright with superiority, and the faces of world leaders forced to smile through humiliation. Reporters in the hall didn't know what to write. Was this peace or a polite declaration of war? But somewhere, standing at the back of the chamber, one man didn't look away. He wasn't a diplomat, he wasn't famous, he was just a soldier, retired early, known only for one thing: thinking before shooting. His name was Ethan Cole. He stood still as the alien spoke, his hands behind his back, his eyes fixed on her every word. He had seen arrogance before, in generals, in politicians, in enemies. But this was different. This was someone who believed entire species could be owned. Zareen's speech lasted 1 hour. Every sentence was a blade, sharp, polished, and cutting deep into human pride. When she finished, she smiled. "As a gesture of goodwill," she said, "we invite Earth to serve under the guidance of the Vorex Empire. It is for your own good." The crowd gasped. A few clapped, trying to be polite. But the rest stayed frozen. And then she added, almost playfully, "Of course, you may decline, but that would be unwise." Her ship's insignia glowed behind her, a symbol of stars wrapped in chains. To her, this was mercy. To humans, it was slavery with a pretty name. Reporters whispered, cameras clicked, and in that chaos, Ethan took a slow breath. Something inside him moved, not anger, not pride, but something older, a quiet voice that said, "No more." When Zareen turned to leave, he stepped forward, just one step, enough for the nearest cameras to notice him. "Excuse me," he said softly. The room went still. No one interrupted a galactic diplomat, especially not a human soldier. Zareen turned, her expression unreadable. "Do you wish to thank me, human?" she asked. Ethan looked up, meeting her eyes. "No," he said. "I wish to speak." The silence that followed was heavy. People looked around, unsure if they should stop him or let him be destroyed. Zarin's smile returned. You are brave. Foolish, but brave. Speak then. I enjoy small entertainment. Ethan's voice stayed calm. You came here to judge us, to measure us. But you forgot one thing. He paused. We don't kneel. Her smile faded. What did you say? You heard me, he said, louder this time. You can call us weak. You can call us chaos. But humanity never bows to arrogance. Not from each other. And not from aliens. The crowd held its breath. For a moment, no one moved. Even the guards of the Vorex ship froze, unsure what to do. Zarin's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. You dare speak to me like this? Ethan didn't flinch. Someone has to. Zarin tilted her head, studying him. Truly studying him this time. There was something in his tone she hadn't heard before. Not fear, not defiance, but belief. The cameras zoomed in, broadcasting the moment across Earth. For the first time, the people saw not just an alien diplomat, but a human standing tall before her. One voice against an empire. And somewhere in that silence, humanity remembered something it had almost forgotten. Dignity. Zarin blinked slowly, then gave a soft laugh. Interesting, she said. Perhaps there is more to this species than noise. She walked away, her guards following. The hall erupted into whispers. Reporters ran to send their stories. And Ethan stood alone, calm, silent, as if nothing had happened. He didn't know what his words had started, but the galaxy was watching now, and the game had just begun. And if you love stories like this, of courage, mystery, and humanity, standing tall against the impossible, then gently, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. More stories await you among the stars. In the days that followed, the world could talk about nothing else. Every news screen, every feed, every voice carried one name, Ethan Cole. Some called him a hero, others called him a fool, but no one could deny one thing. He had spoken when no one else dared. And somewhere, far beyond Earth's orbit, aboard her silver ship, Zarin of the Vorex Empire replayed his words again and again. She sat in her quiet chamber, the soft hum of alien energy echoing around her. Her eyes glowed faintly as she whispered to herself, "Humans don't kneel. How quaint." She should have dismissed him, just another bold creature trying to prove his worth. But something about his calmness disturbed her. No fear, no trembling, just conviction. Zarin had seen thousands of species beg for mercy, surrendering at her first glance. But that human's gaze, it held something new, something she couldn't define. She turned to her aide, a tall alien with crystal skin and a metallic voice. "Bring me everything about that human," she ordered. "His name is Ethan Cole." Within moments, holograms filled the room. Files, records, memories. A soldier, trained in tactical intelligence, served in planetary defense before resigning. No family, no wealth, just silence and discipline. Zarin tilted her head. How curious. The quiet ones always hide the sharpest minds. Her aide hesitated. "Should we eliminate him, Your Excellency?" Zarin smiled faintly. "No, not yet. I want to see how far his defiance goes." Back on Earth, Ethan's world had changed overnight. Reporters followed him, asking for statements. Officials wanted him to apologize, to smooth the tension. But Ethan refused all interviews. He sat alone in his small apartment, staring at the stars outside his window. The city below buzzed with excitement and fear. But Ethan's thoughts were silent, cold, focused. He replayed the moment in his mind. Zareen's voice, her gaze, the crowd's fear. Something deeper was happening here. This wasn't just diplomacy. This was a test. He opened a small metal case beside his desk. Inside lay an old communicator. Technology Earth had borrowed from alien visitors decades ago. He connected it to a private frequency, one used only by defense officers during classified contact. "Call to command," he said quietly. "Requesting permission to initiate contact protocol 0. There was a pause. Then a voice replied, calm and official. "Ethan, you're retired. What are you doing?" "I think this diplomat isn't here for peace," Ethan said. "I think she's here to measure us, to see if we're ready to be conquered." The line stayed silent for a moment. Then, "We'll listen." Ethan leaned back, staring at the communicator light blinking red. He didn't know it yet, but far above, Zareen was already watching him through her ship's sensors. 3 nights later, a message appeared on every human broadcast channel. The Galactic Council had agreed to hold a diplomatic trial, a challenge between the representative of Earth and the Vorex Empire to determine humanity's right to self-govern. The announcement shook the world. People filled the streets with questions, fear, hope. Who would represent Earth? Who could possibly stand against an alien intellect thousands of years ahead? And then, her voice filled every screen. Zareen appeared again, calm, radiant, flawless. Her words were measured, but dripping with superiority. "I have offered your planet a gift, the safety of Vorex guidance, but one of your kind believes he can match me." Her eyes glowed slightly. "So I invite him to prove it, before the entire galaxy." A hush fell across Earth. She didn't say his name. She didn't have to. The feeds, the networks, the people, all whispered it. Ethan Cole. Ethan watched the broadcast from his dark apartment. He didn't move, didn't blink. He simply whispered, "So that's how it is." Hours later, a knock echoed at his door. 3 officials stood there, their faces pale. "Mr. Cole," one said nervously, "the council wants you to represent humanity in the trial." Ethan looked at them quietly. "I'm no diplomat." "That's why they chose you," the man replied. "She's not fighting politicians. She's fighting what humans truly are." For a long time, Ethan said nothing. Then he nodded once. "When and where?" "Tomorrow, orbiting platform above the Pacific. The trial will be streamed across the stars." He nodded, and then tell her I'll be there. Meanwhile, in the cold halls of her ship, Zareen prepared. She stood before a vast mirror, her reflection almost divine. Around her floated symbols of her people's language, each glowing with ancient wisdom. "This human thinks he can challenge me in words," she murmured. Her aide bowed. "He doesn't understand who you are." "No," Zareen replied softly. "But he will." She turned, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "I will not just defeat him. I will humiliate him. And through him, I will humble the entire human race." The stars outside her ship flickered as if in warning, but she didn't notice. The game had begun. Back on Earth, as Ethan prepared his notes, the world around him grew silent. People who mocked him yesterday now watched him with quiet hope. Children drew his name on paper flags. Old soldiers saluted him on the streets. He didn't want fame. He wanted truth. He whispered to himself, "This isn't about pride. It's about who we are." He closed his eyes for a moment, and far above, Zareen opened hers. Two minds, two worlds, one challenge that would decide the fate of humanity. The stage was set. The universe watched. And in the dark between stars, something ancient stirred, as if even the cosmos wanted to see what a single human could do. The morning of the trial arrived, and Earth held its breath. From the deserts to the oceans, every screen on the planet flickered with the same feed, a massive orbiting arena floating above the Pacific, built by the Galactic Council long ago for diplomatic resolutions. It was not built for peace, it was built for spectacle. The arena shone like a silver crown against the blue curve of Earth. Inside, millions of alien eyes watched from every corner of the galaxy. Every seat was filled, every camera was alive, and in the center stood two figures. Zareen of the Vorex Empire, radiant in armor that shimmered like molten glass, and Ethan Cole, plain in a simple black uniform with no medals, no banners, nothing to hide behind. The contrast was almost poetic. She looked like a goddess. He looked like a shadow. But sometimes, shadows reveal more than light ever could. Zareen smiled as the audience fell silent. "Citizens of the stars," she said, her voice echoing across the arena. "Today we settle the question. Is humanity ready to stand among us, or will it return to the darkness it crawled from?" The crowd murmured with amusement. Some laughed. Some hissed. To most of them, the answer was already obvious. Ethan didn't speak. He simply raised his eyes and met hers. Zareen tilted her head slightly. "You may begin, human. Amuse us." Ethan took one slow breath. "Tell me, Ambassador," he said softly, "in your empire, do you believe power makes you right?" The crowd grew quiet. Zareen blinked once, almost surprised. "Power," she said, "is proof of right. The weak are wrong by existence alone." Ethan nodded slowly. "So you believe the strong deserve to rule the weak?" "Of course." Her smile widened. "It is the law of survival, the way of nature." Ethan paused, his expression unreadable. "Strange," he said. "Nature made lions strong, but it was humans who built the cages." The audience gasped, a ripple of sound spreading like fire. Even Zareen's face flickered for a fraction of a second. He wasn't supposed to fight back. She recovered quickly. "You think words can change reality, human?" Ethan smiled faintly. "No, but truth can." Zareen laughed. Cold, beautiful, cruel. "You think truth belongs to you?" He stepped forward. "No, truth belongs to everyone, even those who refuse to see it." The silence that followed was electric. Even the alien translators paused, unsure how to phrase what they'd just heard. Zareen's eyes narrowed. She waved her hand, and a holographic display appeared in the air. Earth's wars, its pollution, its crimes, its endless hunger for conflict. "Lu, Ki," she said, "your history speaks for itself. You destroy what you love. You poison what you touch. Why should you stand beside us?" Ethan's gaze didn't waver. He looked at the images, the pain, the chaos, the mistakes, and said quietly, "Because we learn." Zareen frowned. He took another step forward. "You show our darkness, but you forget our light. You forget that every war we fought taught us peace. Every mistake made us wiser. Every loss made us human. The crowd stirred again. Some of the aliens whispered among themselves. For the first time, they looked unsure. Zarin's tone hardened. "You twist weakness into virtue." Ethan shook his head. "No, I turn honesty into strength. That's something your empire forgot long ago." A low hiss of shock filled the chamber. Her guards tensed. Her eyes burned brighter. "You dare lecture me on strength?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Because you've mistaken fear for power." Her expression froze, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. She stepped closer to him, her voice low and venomous. "You think you've won something with your words?" "No," he whispered. "I think I've started something with my truth." The audience was still. Even the sound of the engines beneath the arena seemed to fade. And then, the air changed. Zarin raised her hand, summoning a wave of light. A swirl of energy surrounded them, filled with images, memories of galaxies conquered, empires fallen, species erased. "Do you see this?" she said. "This is what happens to those who defy the Vorex." Ethan stood in the middle of the storm, unshaken. "You rule with fear," he said. "We survive with hope, and hope is something your empire can't destroy." Her energy faltered. For a heartbeat, just one, the light around her flickered. Zarin took a slow step back, her face unreadable. "You're clever, human. I'll give you that. But this is not a... I never thought it was," he said quietly. "Because I'm not fighting to win. I'm fighting so no one else has to kneel again." The council murmured. Aliens looked at each other, whispering in confusion. Something had changed. Not in words, but in the air itself. The tone of the galaxy had shifted. Zarin turned away sharply. Her voice was colder now. "Tomorrow, we continue, and when we do, you will understand the price of defiance." Ethan didn't answer. He simply looked up at the stars through the arena dome. Each light twinkled softly, small, distant, fragile, yet endless. And somewhere deep inside, he smiled. Because for the first time, he felt it. The universe was listening. As the arena emptied, one of the alien judges whispered to another, "He's only human, and yet he speaks like a force." The other replied, "Perhaps that's what makes them dangerous." Far above, Zarin stood alone in her chamber once again. The reflection in her mirror looked almost human now. Tired, uncertain, angry. She whispered to herself, "He will break. They always break." But even as she said it, a strange feeling twisted in her chest. Something unfamiliar. Something she hadn't felt in centuries. Doubt. She clenched her fist, forcing the thought away. "No," she hissed. "Tomorrow he will kneel." Yet far below, in the quiet of his quarters, Ethan looked toward the stars and whispered, "No. Tomorrow you'll see what humanity really is." The next day would decide everything. But neither of them knew. The trial wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about the soul of the galaxy itself. And somewhere, unseen by both, ancient eyes watched from the dark, whispering, "The human spark has awakened again." The next dawn was not born of sunlight. It rose with fire. Across the skies of Earth, alien ships hovered in silence. The fleets of the Galactic Council, witnesses to what was about to unfold. Every human city stood still, screens glowing, children watching beside their parents, soldiers frozen in quiet prayer. The trial of species would resume in less than 1 hour. And at the center of it all, the two names on every tongue, Zareen, the unshaken queen of diplomacy and dominance. Ethan Cole, the human who had turned arrogance into uncertainty. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone knew it would change everything. In his quarters aboard the orbital platform, Ethan stood alone before a cracked mirror. He hadn't slept. He didn't need to. The silence around him was heavy, as though the stars themselves were waiting. He looked at his reflection, tired eyes, unshaven face, a soldier who never wanted to be a hero. He whispered softly to himself, "This isn't about winning. It's about waking them up." Then the door opened. An old friend entered, Commander Ruiz, head of Earth's Defense Council. "You shouldn't be doing this alone," Ruiz said quietly. Ethan smiled faintly. "I've always been alone when it mattered." Ruiz sighed. "You know what she's planning?" Ethan nodded slowly. "She'll try to break me in front of everyone, not by power, but by truth twisted into lies." Ruiz frowned. "And you think you can stop her?" Ethan looked at him calmly. "I'm not stopping her. I'm showing the galaxy what truth really looks like when it bleeds." Meanwhile, high above in her command chamber, Zareen stood before a wall of shifting holograms. Earth's data, DNA patterns, human history flashing like light storms around her. Her voice was quiet, but sharp enough to cut glass. "They call him a soldier," she said. "But he speaks like a prophet. That makes him dangerous." Her aide bowed. "Shall we silence him?" Zareen shook her head. "No, let him speak. Let him burn himself with his own words. The galaxy must see him fall." Then she turned to the viewport, watching Earth spin below, blue, fragile, alive. For a moment, something unreadable flickered in her eyes. She whispered, "Why do I even care what he says?" The aide pretended not to hear. The trial began with a thunderous roar of light. The arena shimmered into existence once more. Millions watching across galaxies, their voices rising like a cosmic storm. This time, the atmosphere was different. Yesterday had been entertainment. Today felt like judgment. Zareen entered first, radiant and untouchable. Ethan followed, calm, steady, a single human walking into a storm. The council speaker raised his hand. "The trial resumes. Both parties will now present the philosophy of governance, the right to rule and the right to exist." Zareen's lips curved into a slow, confident smile. "Allow me," she said, stepping forward. Her voice filled the chamber like a song, smooth, flawless, dangerous. "In my empire, order is perfection. Chaos breeds death. We rule to preserve existence. Without power, there is only ruin." Images flared behind her. Planets thriving under Vorex control. Civilizations rebuilt. Wars ended by her empire's hand. The crowd murmured in awe. Her words were truth, and yet not truth. She turned to Ethan. "And what do humans offer the stars? Emotion? Instinct? War disguised as freedom?" Her tone was silk over steel. "The galaxy needs control, not compassion. Tell us, human, what can your kind give that we do not already possess? The air grew heavy. Every eye turned to Ethan. He looked up slowly. Choice, he said softly. Zareen blinked. Choice? Yes, Ethan continued. Your empire rules by fear of mistakes. We rule by learning from them. You create peace through silence. We find peace through struggle. You command obedience. We earn respect. He took a step closer, voice rising with every word. The Vorex gave the galaxy safety, but at the cost of its soul. You made the stars quiet. We make them sing. The chamber erupted in whispers. Even the council members leaned forward. Zareen's face darkened, her perfect calm fracturing for the first time. You speak pretty words, sir, but they mean nothing without strength. Ethan's gaze didn't waver. Then test it. The council speaker frowned. You mean a combat trial? Ethan nodded once. Not of weapons, of will. Zareen laughed, the sound echoing like broken glass. Very well, human. Let us see how strong your will truly is. She raised her hand, and a field of energy surrounded them both. A psychic duel. The Vorex form of truth testing. It was not fought with blades, but with thoughts, fears, and memories. The weak broke within seconds. The strong lasted minutes. No human had ever survived it. The light exploded around them, filling the arena. The crowd gasped as their minds were linked, alien and human thoughts colliding like lightning. Zareen's voice echoed inside his head, cold and clear. You cannot hide from me, Ethan Cole. I see your fears, your pain, your weakness. Images flickered before him. War zones, his fallen comrades, the weight of guilt from battles long past. She whispered, You carry ghosts, human. You fight not for pride, but for forgiveness. Ethan's teeth clenched, his vision swimming. He could feel her presence trying to crush his mind. But deep within that chaos, he saw something she didn't expect. A memory of a small child laughing in a ruined city, handing him a broken flower. Zareen frowned. What is that? Ethan's voice echoed in her mind. Hope. And suddenly, the link cracked. Light burst outward. Zareen staggered back, her control breaking for a moment. The audience gasped. The great Vorex diplomat, shaken by a human mind. Ethan stood tall, breathing hard, but unbroken. You wanted to see strength? He said quietly. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up every time we do. Zareen stared at him, truly stared. For a moment her eyes lost their glow, and somewhere deep inside her something human stirred. Awe, confusion, maybe even respect. She whispered, You're not supposed to be like this. Ethan smiled faintly. Neither were you. The arena lights dimmed. The crowd fell silent, the echoes of their battle still hanging in the air. And for the first time since the trial began, Zareen said nothing. Because in the space between their minds, she had seen something terrifying. Not power, not hate, but humanity. And it refused to break. That night, as the stars turned above the quiet planet, the entire galaxy whispered the same question. What happens when the unbreakable meets the unyielding? And deep in her private chamber, Zareen stood alone, staring out into the endless dark. Her reflection wavered in the glass, proud, yet uncertain. Her hand trembled slightly as she whispered, Tomorrow, human, I will end you. But somewhere in her heart, she already knew. Tomorrow, something else might end instead. The third day of the trial began without light. The arena hovered in shadow, cloaked by the dim glow of a dying sunrise. It felt as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for what was about to come. Every planet tuned in. Every species watched. The whispers of yesterday still echoed through the stars. The human didn't fall. The diplomat hesitated. Something is wrong with the Vorex Queen. Zareen had not slept. She stood before her mirror again, the glow from her eyes dimmer now, colder, heavier. Her reflection felt like a stranger. Each time she blinked, she saw fragments of that duel. Ethan's thoughts, his pain, his hope. And that word, hope. It refused to leave her mind. She turned sharply. Erase the memory trace from the duel. Her aide bowed. Yes, Excellency. No one must know he resisted, she added, her voice trembling for the first time in centuries. Her aide hesitated. But the council... Zareen cut him off. The council obeys perception, not truth. For the first time, fear crept into her words. Meanwhile, Ethan was awake before dawn, sitting quietly at the observation deck of the station. Earth spun slowly beneath him, a blue jewel in an ocean of stars. He felt small, and yet not powerless. The night before had changed everything. He had felt her mind, her pride, her emptiness, her loneliness buried beneath layers of command and perfection. And now, he knew something the galaxy didn't. Zareen wasn't a monster. She was a prisoner of her own throne. The door hissed open behind him. Commander Ruiz entered again, his face pale and tense. They want you in the arena in 20 minutes, he said. Ethan nodded, still looking out the window. Do you have a plan this time? Ruiz asked. Ethan smiled faintly. Plans don't win wars, Ruiz. People do. Ruiz frowned. You can't just stand there and talk again. She'll come harder today. They say she's preparing something psychological. Ethan's voice stayed calm. Then I'll remind her what it means to feel. When Zareen arrived at the arena that day, she didn't look like a diplomat. She looked like a storm. Her armor had changed, darker, more angular, pulsing with energy. Her very presence seemed heavier, bending the light around her. The audience grew silent. Something was different, something dangerous. She raised her hand, and a new structure appeared between them, a ring of light that expanded into a holographic battlefield. Mountains, oceans, fire. It was a mental simulation built from both their memories. The Council has approved a new phase, she said. A simulation trial. You and I will relive our civilizations. The one that endures wins. Ethan looked up at her calmly. Then, let's begin. The ring of light exploded, and suddenly they were both standing on a barren wasteland. Ruined cities, broken machines, echoes of screams. It was Earth, but not his Earth. It was her interpretation, a version where humanity had destroyed itself. Zareen's voice filled the air. Behold, Harpar, you man. This is your legacy. Chaos. Ethan walked through the dust, his boots crunching over ashes, children's toys half buried. Ruined buildings that once held life. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. No, this is your fear of us. You don't see what we are. You see what we could become if we lost hope. The world shifted. The ashes around them stirred and turned into green. Grass, leaves. A ruined city slowly rebuilt itself. Zareen frowned, her control flickering. What is this? Ethan looked at her. This is what comes after the fall. You showed destruction. I show rebirth. The crowd watching through the broadcast gasped as the simulation responded to him. It wasn't supposed to do that. Only Zareen had the authority to command the field. But the simulation, the very code of the psychic arena, was listening to him now. Zareen tried to reassert control, her voice echoing through the air. Stop this! But Ethan's voice grew stronger, resonating with the energy itself. You think power is control. It's not. Power is the choice to rebuild when you have every reason to give up. The sky above them changed. The storm clouds broke, sunlight flooding the ruins. For the first time, the entire galaxy saw something Zareen could never fabricate. The human spirit rising from ashes. Zareen fell to her knees, her control unraveling. Her armor flickered, her aura dimming. She looked up at him, her voice breaking. You can't be this strong. You're just one man. Ethan's voice was calm, but his eyes burned. One man is enough when he stands for everyone else. The arena lights flared, the simulation collapsing as reality rushed back. They stood once again in the real chamber, surrounded by millions of silent watchers. Zareen was trembling. The crowd, once her loyal audience, was still. And then, to everyone's shock, one of the alien judges stood and began to clap. Slowly, others joined, then more, and soon the entire arena thundered with applause for a human. Zareen turned away, her face pale, her lips trembling. For the first time, she felt something she had never experienced before. Defeat. But worse than that, understanding. She didn't hate him. She feared what he represented. Not war, not rebellion, but truth. Ethan took a slow step closer and said softly, You came to judge us, but maybe it's time you judged yourself. Zareen's eyes flickered, fury and sorrow mixing together. Her voice was low, almost broken. You've won their hearts, but not mine. Ethan nodded. Then maybe I'll win your respect instead. She stared at him for a long moment and said nothing. The council declared the session ended. Earth's representatives rose, cheering, crying, and as Ethan walked away, he didn't look back. But Zareen did. For the first time in her life, she looked at a human, not as a lesser being, not as a threat, but as an equal. That night, she sat alone in her ship, staring at the void between stars. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass, proud, tired, uncertain. She whispered, Maybe. They were never the ones who needed saving. The stars outside twinkled faintly, like distant eyes watching her rediscover something she thought long dead, her own heart. And far below, on Earth, Ethan looked up at the same stars, whispering quietly, She'll be back, but next time, not as an enemy. But deep in the shadows of space, something older than both of them stirred, something that had watched the trial with silent curiosity. Because the galaxy had just witnessed a spark, and sparks, once born, have a way of igniting fire, the galaxy did not sleep that night. News of the trial spread faster than light, through satellites, through psychic waves, through whispers carried by creatures who had no mouths. Every world spoke one name: Ethan Cole, the human who stood against an empire and did not break. But not everyone celebrated. In the high councils of the stars, fear began to grow. A new species had risen, one that could resist not with weapons, but with will. The Vorex Empire's influence trembled. And Zareen, she vanished. For 7 days, her ship was silent. No signal, no transmission, no orders. The galaxy waited, for vengeance or surrender. Ethan spent those same 7 days back on Earth, hiding from cameras and crowds. He walked through quiet streets, past people who saluted him, thanked him, even prayed to him. But he didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a fuse, one that had been lit and now burned towards something he couldn't see. He stopped at an overlook that night, staring at the sky where her ship had vanished. "Where are you now, Zareen?" he murmured. She didn't lose because she was evil. She lost because she forgot why truth matters. But somewhere beyond those stars, Zareen was listening. Far across the void, her ship drifted in the cold of deep space. Engines silent, shields dim. Inside, she stood in darkness, the only light coming from the faint blue glow of her eyes. For 7 nights, she had replayed every word Ethan said during the trial. Choice, hope, strength through honesty. They echoed like ghosts in her mind, refusing to fade. She hated them, she envied them, and slowly, she began to believe them. She reached out, activating a hidden terminal. A message appeared, marked classified, eyes of the Empress only. The message came from the Vorex High Command. Ambassador Zareen, you have failed to secure Earth. You will return for immediate reassignment. The Council will prepare the assimilation protocol for Sector Sol. Her hands froze. Assimilation protocol. It meant annihilation, a total cleansing of Earth. Her heart pounded. No. Not after what she had seen. Not after what that human had shown her. Zareen closed her eyes, and for the first time in centuries, she disobeyed an order. 2 days later, the skies above Earth tore open once again, not with fire, but with light. Zareen's ship appeared over the Pacific, descending quietly. Defense. Forces scrambled, ready to fire. But before a single shot was fired, her voice echoed through every channel on the planet. "Do not attack," she said. "I come not as a ruler, but as a messenger." The world froze. Even Ethan, sitting in a quiet cafe, dropped his cup. He ran outside, looking up at the familiar silver glow. She had returned. Moments later, she stood once again in the United Council chamber. This time, there were no guards, no throne, just her, and a sea of wary eyes. She looked tired, almost human. "I was sent to control you," she said quietly. "To study your flaws, to break your pride, to bring your world under the order of the Vorex. But I learned something my empire never understood." She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of each human representative. "You are not dangerous because of your weapons. You are dangerous because you believe." The room stayed silent. Even the translators paused, unsure how to interpret belief. Ethan stepped forward from the back of the room. "You came back," he said softly. Zareen looked at him, something gentle flickering behind her cold gaze. "I came to warn you. The Council has declared you a threat. They are sending fleets to make Earth an example. Gasps filled the chamber. Ethan's fists clenched. How long do we have? Zarin's voice was low. 3 days, maybe less. The leaders began to argue, shouting, panicking, but Ethan stayed silent, eyes fixed on her. Why are you telling us this? He asked. She hesitated, then said quietly, because you changed me. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then she turned to the Council's main screen and activated a projection. Massive ships, each larger than a city, moving toward the solar system. Their energy signatures glowed like suns. The invasion had begun. Zarin looked back at Ethan. I cannot stop them alone. But together, maybe we can show them what humanity really is. Ethan nodded slowly. Then we'll fight. But not like them. She frowned. What do you mean? Ethan's gaze hardened. We'll fight with truth again, with what scares them most, our unity. Within hours, the entire planet was preparing. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, even artists. Every broadcast carried the same message. Humanity stands, not alone, but together. And high above the Earth, Zarin's ship linked its defenses with human satellites. Alien and human technology merged, something the galaxy had never seen. As the first of the Vorex fleets entered the solar system, their scanners detected something impossible. Earth's energy signature was rising, billions of hearts beating as one. Inside her command bridge, Zarin whispered, They don't understand. This planet doesn't need an empire. It is one. And beside her, Ethan stood in silence, watching the enemy fleets approach. The stars were no longer quiet. They were roaring, the sound of a world ready to defend its right to exist. The invasion hadn't even begun, but the galaxy could already feel it. Something ancient was awakening in humanity. Something even Zarin's empire had forgotten. The power to change the course of civilizations without conquering them. And in the vast darkness beyond the fleets, unseen by all, another presence stirred. Older than the Vorex, older than the Council. A voice whispered through the cosmic dust. At last, they've returned. The warning had spread across every continent. The Vorex Armada was coming. Humanity had 3 days before the sky itself would turn into fire. The world did not sleep. Factories that had been silent for decades roared back to life. Space stations blinked awake like metal eyes. And on the high orbital platform, where Ethan and Zarin now stood, the Earth glowed below them, not as a helpless world, but as a living pulse of defiance. Zarin watched the preparations in silence, her expression unreadable. For centuries, she had commanded fleets larger than stars and planets. And now she stood beside a species that had barely left its cradle. And yet, something in her chest refused to call them weak. Ethan walked up behind her. You've seen empires rise and fall, he said quietly. Tell me the truth. Can we stop them? Zarin turned slowly, the faint blue light of her eyes flickering like dying stars. No, she said. Then, after a pause, but we can make them see. See what? That you're not prey, she whispered. That even the smallest flame can blind the gods who stare too long. In the Council of Worlds, far across the stars, the Supreme Commander of the Vorex watched the Earth through his control screen. His name was Varen, the Iron Sovereign, Zarin's mentor and the architect of her empire. His face was sharp and metallic, his voice smooth as a blade. "Prepare orbital cleansing," he ordered. "The planet dies, and its defiance dies with it." A young officer hesitated. "Sir, Ambassador Zareen is aboard that world. Shall we extract her first?" Varen's eyes flicked like lightning. "No. If she stands with them, she dies with them." And in that instant, Zareen's fate was sealed by the empire she once called home. On Earth, humans worked side by side with alien engineers, the same ones who had stayed behind after the trial, curious about humanity's courage. Energy grids hummed, defense fields linked with Zareen's ship. It wasn't a war machine they were building. It was something new, a shield made from unity itself. Ethan stood at the center of it all, surrounded by glowing screens. Reports poured in. Africa connected its solar network. Asia synchronized orbital frequencies. South America activated its defense satellites. And then, a message came from the moon base. "Commander Cole, the fleet is visible now. First ships entering lunar range." He turned to Zareen. "It's starting." She nodded slowly. "Then we start too." She extended her hand, and Ethan hesitated before taking it. Her touch was cold, the kind of cold that had forgotten warmth long ago. But when their hands met, something shifted in the air. Her ship's systems glowed brighter. His heart raced. Human and Vorex technology merged seamlessly, forming a hybrid energy field unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Zareen whispered, "This wasn't supposed to be possible." Ethan smiled faintly. Neither was hope. In orbit, the first of the Vorex dreadnoughts appeared. Titanic vessels, each the size of a continent, their hulls burning with the energy of captive suns. The lead ship transmitted one message across all channels. "By decree of the Vorex Empire, Sector Sol is condemned. Submit or be cleansed." Ethan stepped forward toward the comlink. His voice, calm and steady, echoed across space. "This is Earth. We don't submit, we stand." Silence. Then, laughter, cold, metallic, endless. The enemy opened fire. Beams of pure energy tore through the sky, slamming into the shield Zareen and Ethan had created. The planet shook, oceans rippled, mountains quivered. But the shield held. The people of Earth looked up and saw light, not destruction, but defiance blazing across the heavens. Zareen gritted her teeth, every pulse of the energy field burning through her. Her armor cracked, sparks flaring across her skin. "They're stronger than I expected," she gasped. Ethan held her steady. "Then we make them stronger?" "How?" she whispered. He turned to the screen, opening all global communication lines. "By letting them know they're not alone." His voice boomed across every speaker, every station, every home. "To everyone who can hear me, they're coming for all of us. But we are not afraid. We are not slaves. We are human. And we fight not because we want to destroy, but because we want to live." All across the world, people stood up. Scientists in labs, children on rooftops, soldiers in bunkers. Their combined signal pulsed upward, merging into the shield, amplifying it. The light grew brighter, blue, white, golden, until even the stars seemed to bow. Zareen's eyes widened. This isn't just technology." Ethan's voice trembled with awe. "No, it's belief." The Vorex fleet's beams began to fracture, their energy readings spiraled out of control. The human field wasn't fighting them with strength. It was absorbing their attacks, bending them back, turning destruction into light. Varen, watching from his throne ship, rose in disbelief. "What are they doing? That power is impossible!" A scientist stammered. It's not power, sir. It's resonance. They're synchronizing life signatures across the entire species. Then silence them, he roared. But even as he spoke, his own ship's lights began to flicker. Zareen looked up, realizing what was happening. They're burning themselves to stop you. They'll destroy everything, even me. Ethan turned to her. Then we stop them together. He reached out, placing his hand over the ship's core control. Zareen joined him, their minds linking once more. Energy roared through them, human emotion colliding with alien intellect. Visions flashed between them, her childhood under the Empire's laws, his battles on dying fields, her loneliness among the stars, his unbroken hope. For the first time, she saw through his eyes, and he saw through hers. Tears shimmered in her glowing eyes. I've spent my life ending worlds, she whispered. Maybe I was meant to save one. Then start now, Ethan said. They poured everything into the core. The light burst outward, not as a weapon, but as a wave of consciousness. It spread across space like dawn breaking through darkness. The attacking fleets froze. Their crews felt something they had never felt before. Emotion, memory, regret. Varen staggered as the wave reached him. He saw the faces of the species he had conquered. He heard their cries, and for the first time, the Iron Sovereign felt fear. The light consumed his ship. When it faded, the Vorex fleet was gone. No explosion, no wreckage, just silence and stars. Ethan collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily. Zareen caught him before he fell. The shield around Earth dimmed, its purpose complete. Below them, the entire planet watched the sky, calm, untouched, free. Zareen whispered, "You did it." Ethan shook his head weakly. "We did." She smiled faintly. "Perhaps you were right. The strong aren't those who conquer. They're the ones who choose not to." He smiled back, exhausted. "Took you long enough to figure that out." She laughed, softly, sincerely, for the first time in her life. But behind her, deep in the darkness of space, a faint ripple appeared, something older, deeper, and far beyond either of them. A presence watching, waiting. Because the light they had unleashed had awakened something ancient. Something that once ruled before the Vorex. Something that had been sleeping since the birth of the first stars. And now, it had opened its eyes.